is Tim?
The license there, but they are.
Oh, you got.
We spent the night in her parents' basement,
Yeah.
including Tim.
Oh,
Yes.
yes, the building they lived on in Cheeseman Park,
Yeah, the county.
the townhouse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was.
I'd like to see pictures of the Rockies.
I'm good to go if we're ready to record. Okay. Give me 1 second here.
Welcome, everyone. Today is it's Tuesday, October 28th, 2025, Pickens County's Planning and Zoning Meeting. Present, we have Doug, Suzanne, Debbie, and myself. Do we have anyone else, Joe Mason or anyone else?
No, we do not.
Okay. Any comments from any commissioner before we start? Staff?
I have some scheduling questions, which I'm happy to do now or at the end of the meeting if you prefer. We can, if they'll be quick things, but I could do it at the end.
Okay, yeah, let's do it at the end. Okay. And then, I don't see any members of the public right now, so I will start with the, land use action. With Leslie.
Hi, so Leslie Lamont, Senior Planner of the Community Development Department. I need to make a quick correction. I think in your memo and in the reso, I reflected what the zone districts are in the overlay district of the valleys of Capitol Creek and Lower Snowmass Creek. And I neglected to include, there is a small area that is zoned public. That's where the post office is. There's an area that's zoned affordable housing, which is right where Snowmass Creek Road crosses at the bridge. And then, no, it's
Doesn't,
half a dozen, yeah.
John Howard. Kinsley.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's deed restricted housing.
Oh,
And
George.
then there's B2, which is the Snowmass Conoco. So those are additional 3 zone districts that are part of this overlay district. So here's a map of the valleys of Capitol Creek and Lower Snowmass Creek overlay district. And this map was created when the BOCC adopted ordinance 36/2023 to create the VCLS overlay district. However, the Snowmass Capitol Creek Caucus wants to move forward on some land use code legislation to implement recommendations from their master plan, and the master plan was adopted earlier in 2023. Staff agreed to sponsor the proposed text amendments to these changes to the code, so these changes could be adopted in a timely manner. So the caucus hired Tim to help them prepare what they wanted to do, and then we as the Community Development Department are taking this through the process. So the overlay district is a zoning overlay that was implemented in December of 2023 by the BOCC. The overlay district limited the final maximum residential floor area to 5,750 square feet and prevents the use of TDRs or GMQS allotment to increase the size beyond 5,750. The caucus proposes text amendments to further the goals of their master plan, primarily to protect and preserve the quality of life and the rural agricultural character of the Snowmass Capitol Creek area, and to protect and preserve the scale of existing development. This process is a 2-step process. The P&Z will review this and make a recommendation to the BOCC, and the BOCC at a public hearing at a first and second reading will consider the P&Z's recommendation and the proposed text amendments. So there are key elements of the proposed text amendments. The caucus recrafted language to reiterate the 5,750 square foot limitation. The caucus is also proposing to prevent various housing typologies other than a single-family home. So duplex, multifamily, mobile home are proposed as prohibited. They are proposing to prevent future special event venues. And they're proposing that any special event permits are to be referred by the planning director to the appropriate caucus, not just this caucus, but the language they're proposing would reiterate that special event permits are referred to all caucuses for referral and comment, for the appropriate caucus for referral and comment. In looking at these proposed amendments and particularly getting some referral comments from our zoning staff, we have made some revisions to the text amendments. Let me. Okay, that's not gonna work. There we go. So this was attached to your memo. Sorry, I'm not. Here we go. Is that gonna work? What happened? What happened? Why?
Or not.
I'm lost in my attachment.
Try going there. First one down.
Right, up
Back
again.
to the next page.
No.
Oh, maybe if I do this. Okay, I got the map back. Okay. We're just gonna keep it at this scale, okay? So this was attached to your packet. And the black,
G.
what, attachment G, yeah. The black text is the current code. And then what is struck through is, and red is what the caucus is proposing. And then what is red and struck through are staff's recommended revisions to what the caucus is proposing. This first A, intent, the caucus is basically stating the same thing, that the limitation is 5,050 square feet and no TDRs and no GMQS allotments. And we took out the caucus language and just are deferring to the current code language that was adopted when this overlay district was adopted, leaving in the language about night skies. That night skies be preserved and that special event uses and venues be regulated to minimize noise, traffic, and other impacts associated with such uses. So we're recommending keeping the first language, the first red paragraph, keeping the second, and then we struck through where they reiterate again, 5750.
You struck through that and disagreed with it?
Well, we just thought it was redundant because we're already saying that in the paragraph above.
Okay.
Yeah. And the first paragraph in red text is, I think, just a reiteration for the caucus to tie all these changes to their master plan as well. This is just tying this to the language in the ordinance 3623, the top red sentence. That paragraph in the ordinance acknowledges that there are certain vested site-specific development plans that already went through the approval process and are vested. And that when ordinance 36/2023 was adopted, that vesting is not affected by the ordinance.
But the vesting is limited in time?
Mhm. Different projects have
Different,
Different.
3 years, some bigger projects. Not related to this overlay district, but Chaparral had a 20-year vesting or something like that, so, yeah. This is our permitted use chart, and this is where I attempted to show you in the various zone districts that are within the overlay district. This is the permitted uses with regard to residential structures, residential uses, but I'm going to jump forward to a better slide that Tim made that kind of distills that permitted use table and shows you for example, the AH zone district, a duplex and a mobile home are allowed by special review or allowed use. So Tim did this chart. So again, what the caucus is requesting, and there's a footnote that Tim has added to the permitted use chart. And it's note 1 that says no duplex dwelling units, mobile homes and multifamily dwelling units. New duplex dwelling units, mobile homes and multifamily dwelling units are prohibited within the VCLS overlay district after it would be the adoption of this ordinance in accordance with the recommendations of the overlay district. Staff did not support this because a couple reasons, as I outlined in my memo to you. Gosh. I didn't think this would be so difficult. This is basically our current code. And in the majority of the area of the caucus, a mobile home unit is already prohibited. If there's not an A for allowed use or S for special review use, that means that the use is prohibited in that zone district. So for example, in AR10, multifamily, mobile home park, mobile home unit, and duplex are already prohibited uses. And Tim will talk to this, but we do have there is a AH zone district in the overlay district. It's small and it's pretty much built out. We do have a B2 and a public zone district where a duplex could be allowed by special review or a multifamily unit allowed by special review. As staff, we felt it was kind of redundant to have this footnote in there for the overlay district, as well as I don't know if some of you remember when the Redstone Castle came through, we amended the code to add number 4, deed restricted category affordable housing rental units, as a way for an employer to put on-site employee housing on their property. It worked really great because we had the Redstone Castle. They had a lot of employee mitigation. They're putting like 16 units of deed restricted employee housing on the property. And we changed the code to support that kind of proposal. But the staff envisions, and kind of in doing our 2050 visioning, one of the comments that's coming through is maybe for people who have employees that come to their property every day that have on-site employees, maybe there should be a mechanism to support on-site employee housing. And a duplex or triplex could be something that
I can imagine
could support that.
For ranch workers,
Mhm.
under what other scenario would that likely occur? That somebody would have a business in their home and wonder, could that get out of hand?
Well, any utilization of, this section of the code would require, special review. So it would be a, special review process. So, yeah, but I would think in this overlay district, in this particular part of the county, it would be, ranching. You know, McCabe Ranch already has baked into it a bunch of deed restricted housing based upon the history of approvals. But if there was another, large ranching operation that wanted to, you know, bring on some and put some employee housing on site, obviously well water and septic and, you know, those facilities would have to support that. But, that is the primary reason why staff doesn't support the footnote, in the permitted use table. The second footnote in the permitted use table is, a footnote that special event venues are prohibited within the VCLS overlay district. And, staff supports that. Not finally. There are two other proposals that, the applicant is proposing. And based upon their master plan and based upon, you know, Tim, you can talk more about this, but were quite a few new residential development and siting criteria that they're proposing that we would utilize, when looking at new development proposals in this overlay district. And, so we have one, A through J, A through K, A through L, and then under water standards, they have, recommended, landscape garden irrigation and then agricultural irrigation, all related to water standards. And then there's a pesticides and inorganic fertilizer, standards that, the caucus would like staff to utilize when they're looking at new development. The revisions that staff is recommending are primarily those kinds of standards that if you would imagine our zoning planner going out and doing a final inspection on property, or a building inspector going out and doing an inspection, or Josh Rice doing some inspection, are really almost, they're not things that they are going to be able to enforce specifically. And I utilize like, under landscape and garden irrigation, mulch shall be applied to all planting beds with a minimum depth of 2 inches to reduce evaporation. So, based upon primarily the comments I got from zoning, we kind of went through these and pulled out the ones that, when we're doing, for example, activity envelope and site plan review, when we're specifically looking at all development on the property, whether it's the orientation of your driveway or your landscaping or berms that you may be using to screen the new development, or where's your hardscape versus your softscape, things like that. Those are things that we can specifically identify in the site plan. You know, 1C, new development shall not include overhead beams or arches over driveway entrances. You know, landscaping intended to screen proposed structures, driveways, and other improvements shall include topographical features such as berms designed to blend with the natural terrain. Those are things that when we're doing a site plan review, we can look at and we can identify and we can make sure are part of the site plan. But when it comes to how they're going to irrigate, how they're going to plant their gardens, Rainwater harvesting systems are encouraged for residential properties to collect and store rainwater, which shall be utilized for landscape irrigation. That's the kind of stuff that when zoning goes out there, they're not looking at that. You know, they're looking at, like at stuff I described, the hardscape, the height of the building, the overall square footage. So, that's why, those have been, struck. Every activity envelope and site plan review, even the addition of a caretaker dwelling unit is referred. It's a public review process and is referred. So my recommendation was that when the caucus gets those kind of applications, and most applicants go before the caucus. You know, the SNOCAP is a very active caucus, and most applications or their applicants or their reps go before the caucus and make their pitch for the caucus to then send us referral comments. That should be the time that the caucus, staff believes is when the caucus should be kind of educating the applicant about their kind of irrigation, use of pesticides, and water standards. Finally,
The caucus, what gives the caucus oomph when that sort of thing is being asked for? If it's not in the land use code, or is it just whether the caucus is strong enough to say this is what we wanted? We know nothing is written down about it, but I mean, that's kind of a surprise to the applicant then.
I think the caucuses and like I said, this caucus is a pretty active caucus. I've gotten a lot of referral comments from this caucus on applications that, they put everything in there that they want to put in there. And, if, at least I had a really constrained site that the caucus was really supportive on, really limiting on trying to make, the development work within the site. That was, in gray and in between the lines. And I think the applicant wanted to work with the caucus and wanted the caucus's blessing as they came forward. But, from a site inspection, a zoning inspection, they're not going to go out there and measure if 2 inches of mulch have been put on the planter bed. What they're going to look for is, okay, this is the landscaping plan. And is the amenities that have been proposed around the house, are they within the activity envelope? Are they in the location where the site plan approved? We work hard with applicants on landscaping plans. If it's a really important area that needs some good landscaping and, good landscaping for good neighbors, right?
So, I mean, just to your saying, same as Leslie said, yes, if it's only in the master plan, it's not in the code, right? It's not enforceable by us, but I think we're trying to find that distinction between how much can we really realistically enforce. The city, they created very detailed landscaping requirements and water usage requirements. They have an entire department that enforces that and manages that for them. Again, so somewhere in there, we're trying to find that line between, for this one caucus area, having all of this detailed stuff, do we really have the ability with the staff we have to enforce all of those things? A lot of it, I think, provides great input and fodder for, as the county's going forward, like what level of managing people's landscape and water usage is appropriate and how can we best do that? But I think trying to have us start enforcing in one area and a lot more detail than, we're kind of used to, getting into irrigation systems is definitely beyond what we have the capacity to deal with. So I think, again, we're kind of going, a lot of these great ideas and we want people to know about it. And the master plan does provide a great, venue for that. And it provides a great way for the caucus to go, this is really important to us. And we really feel strongly about, like, your landscape plan does not, address, what we think, we need more, whatever.
Yeah.
That always helps us,
Mhm.
but again, it's not an enforceable code
Mhm.
thing. So again, we're, trying to find that balance somewhere.
So going back, well, Tim, well, two things. I wanted to ask you, if you had an application and it was in this valley,
Mhm.
that valley, well, you wouldn't feel blindsided because you know what's going on, but would you pretend to feel blindsided and say, well, you didn't write it down?
Oh, I would use every tool that I
It's still such food.
had. But I think the important thing to remember about this is that having something in the code, aside from the question of enforceability, which I would like to talk about briefly, has two purposes. One, it becomes a standard that you are supposed to comply with.
Mhm.
But it also sends a message. People will try and cheat. We all know that. We've all experienced that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people won't try and cheat. They'll see the standard and they'll say, okay, I can do that. And that, I think, the caucus was aware that, because I advised them, that some of these things would be a challenge to administer. And they said, well, let's put it in there because it tells people what we want to have happen, and a lot of people will do it.
Mhm.
And that, to us, is enough of a reason to put it in there.
Yeah.
Whether it gets enforced in the manner that the Community Development Department is happy with, comfortable with, or has the resources to do, is a good question and one that they need to consider carefully. But I'm just saying that there's another side to it from their perspective.
Oh, the other was, if, as you were, I think you were yes, when we were talking about cash and lieu last week,
Oh, I wasn't here, but.
oh, you weren't. So, oh, I know, it was power. I was expressing some level of disgust with the cash and lieu program. And she made an argument and taught me things that I did not know. And that is that sometimes cash and lieu monies do help us accomplish other things. And so she said, in your toolbox, don't just toss out cash and lieu. But now as I see this, when you're talking about allowing a business people, employees who come to a place every day, maybe there should be housing for them. That could be like not using cash in lieu. It could be, these are the employees that I generate, so these are the ones that I'm gonna house, right?
That is the intent behind that recently approved section of the code.
Mhm.
It's on-site employees.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one more section to talk about and then continue with questions or turn it over to Tim. So finally, the caucus is proposing that in this section 4-3050, where we talk about special event permits, the caucus wanted to add a sentence that said the community development director shall refer all special event permit applications to the appropriate recognized caucus for review and comment prior to issuance of a permit. We have two sections in the code right now that that provide for notification. Section 16150, that first bulleted paragraph, the county will provide notification of pending land use applications to the affected adjoining property owners, homeowners associations, and neighborhood caucus groups when appropriate. And then the second bullet in section 2 of our code, once the application is deemed complete by the community development director, the application shall be referred to those county, city, state, and federal agencies and neighborhood organizations selected by the Community Development Director for comments. So staff is recommending striking the last sentence on the paragraph in section 4-30-50 that the caucus is proposing, because we already have these two sections in the code that tell the community development director to refer.
I'll just add, I mean, I've certainly, and maybe Tim has more because he's spoken more with the caucus about this specifically, but I mean, we refer all of our special event permit applications, not just to this caucus, but to any caucus where the event is taking place, and I've certainly never heard a complaint that that wasn't happening. So again, I just felt like this was redundant and unnecessary if it's what we're doing and what we are, you know, under the code already required to do, so. And there, again, there may have been a different conversation with the caucus that Tim can share.
Should we turn it over to Tim?
Okay. Tim Malloy, 402 Park Drive, Glenwood Springs.
Are you sharing?
No.
Okay.
Do I need to turn this on?
Oh, no, that one, we don't use the mics, yep.
Glenwood Springs representing the valleys of Capitol Creek and Lower Snowmass Creek with this application. I was thinking that Ned might be joining us remotely, but I don't see his name on the list up there, and I think we are alone in the room.
Yeah.
So no one else from the caucus is going to be attending, although I thought one or two might, so it's just me. First of all, we are appreciative of the opportunity to be before you to look at this change that has grown from the master plan, the recommendations and the policies that are in the caucus master plan, which you all adopted on May the 2nd of 2023. We are appreciative of the support for most of the policies that has been given by staff. We really only have 3 areas that we want to talk about. The first one is with respect to the staff edit to the second paragraph of the intent statement. And Liz, if you could pull up attachment G. So it's got 2 parts. The edit to the second paragraph of the intent statement on page 1 of attachment G. And then the removal of the related footnote on table 4-1 in the code.
And Bonnie's helping me to see if we can make this bigger for you guys. Full screen mode.
And that's where it goes blank.
That's where it goes blank.
You see.
Can you, do you guys have it on your laptops? Can you read it? Okay, then okay. I don't need to worry about you. Yeah.
Cause I'm gonna have to get you.
But it looks like it's the first paragraph that's struck.
I'm gonna share this again.
Yeah.
Actually, the first paragraph that's struck in black, that's the caucus's request. Strike the first paragraph and redo it with the second red paragraph.
Okay.
That's us. Then the second paragraph, we proposed a different language, which the staff has modified. And that's what we want to talk about. And the most important strikeout is the first sentence, which says the master plan recommends that there be no multifamily condominium apartment townhome or trailer home units in the caucus area. Everything else I agree with Les. Most everything was in the prior version of the paragraph, with the exception of the last sentence, which staff kept. It's this first sentence that's important to the caucus. And the reason for that is because it supports the additional recommendation, which is the footnote at the bottom of table 4-1, which has a similar prohibition for duplex units, multifamily units, condominiums, et cetera. And the reasons for them will concede that the vast majority of the land within the caucus, which is zoned rural, RS30, and AR10, these units are already prohibited. So we already have an issue from the standpoint of whether or not a rancher who's within an RS30 zone wants to do a multifamily unit for, some kind of a worker housing. It's already prohibited. So the caucus is simply saying, we just would like it to be clear that it's prohibited in the other three zone districts, which Les mentioned at the beginning, which is AR2 and R30. And R30 is basically Gateway, and the southern portion of Little Elk Creek where Suzanne lived. And the AR2 is the northern portion of the subdivision. And the AH and B2 and public zone districts have already been described. And one of the things that kept coming around in the discussion when the caucus was considering this change was that the county has been of late trying to be less arbitrary or less obfuscating with respect to what is and isn't permitted. And they felt like, let's just be clear. We have this language in our master plan, which the planning commission approved, that says there should be none of these units in our caucus area. So let's add it to the code. And so that's the reason why it's in here. And we would simply note that since this is a policy that the planning commission approved in the master plan, the caucus felt it was logical to add it to the code. And so that's why they added the sentence, the first sentence to the second paragraph that supports the change, which is proposed to the note, the bottom of table 4-1. So that's one of the three items I want to discuss. The second one is the elimination of the irrigation standards and inorganic fertilizer standards, which is in that on page 4 of attachment G. And this is only for site plan and activity envelope reviews. So in other words, this is the only case where it would come up, except through, you know, subdivision or something more major like that. But the standards, if you look at them, are really not different from a whole myriad and host of standards that are in section 7 of the code. I have here the wildfire standards, and they're remarkably similar in terms of the kind of language that is being proposed in the standards that are being offered by the caucus under the residential development siting criteria on page 2 of attachment G and 3, and then the water standards, which are on page 3, and the agriculture. So that's the landscape and agricultural irrigation standards, and then the pesticides and inorganic fertilizers. So first, I just wanted to talk about the landscape, garden, and irrigation standards. We've suggested that this be flagged when you're going to go through a site plan or activity envelope review. Actually, that's not the correct. We should modify that and say only for site plan, because the activity envelope review doesn't require a landscape plan. So if you're coming in for a site plan review, then you're required to provide a landscape plan. And at the time that the staff reviews a landscape plan, they can review it for all of these items. Are you using drip or soaker irrigation? Do you have a smart irrigation controller as part of the details of your landscape irrigation plan? Are you using low flow sprinkler heads? All of these things are things that are pretty commonplace now for irrigation, for landscape and garden irrigation. So this isn't like stretching the envelope from the standpoint of somebody who'd be coming in to present a landscape plan to you. So I don't really see the issue with why these standards would be any more difficult than any others to administer from the standpoint of reviewing whether or not the landscape plans include the appropriate details to acknowledge that, yes, in fact, we've complied with the standard. Now, the second part of that, of course, is the landscape gets built. Staff is responsible for going out and doing the inspections, making sure that it was done in conformance with the approved plans. That's harder, and we understand that. But we feel it's worth it for the whatever percent, 50 to 70% of people who are just going to do it because A, they want to do the right thing, and B, this isn't like rocket science. This is stuff that's already out there and being done all the time anyway. And so, you know, we'd get a very high percentage of, you know, responses, compliance with these standards, I think, if we just added them to the code. So that's one of the things that they wanted you to consider. Water conservation is a huge issue in Colorado. And we have a whole section of the building code devoted to low flow, you know, sprinkler heads and low flow sinks and toilets and all kinds of things. And honestly, more water gets used through irrigation than through domestic use. And so why not have a similar set of standards that require people to up their game with respect to how irrigation water is used in a county that, you know, has you know, some concerns and an attitude toward preserving water and water quality. So those are the reasons why they believe that these standards should be adopted. And we don't feel that they're that difficult to administer, and it'd be worth it just for the percentage of the population who are coming in with plans that would comply.
Did you want to go to pesticides?
Yeah, that's next.
Oh, okay.
I was just gonna comment on the irrigation. I mean, it is fairly easy to go over and look at the irrigation box, see if it's a smart one, see what it's set at.
Mhm.
It wouldn't be that hard for someone, I mean, most homeowners who have an irrigation system can go look at their box and figure out what's going on. Now, admittedly, I'm a landscaper, so they're really common, they're really easy to read.
Yes.
I looked at them for years, but they're not that difficult, they're not high tech. So I could see that being something that would be not that hard to enforce. Irrigation wise, the next section, we'll see. The next section, as far as what people are using for fertilizer and pesticides and stuff like that, that could be really hard to.
Well, that's next.
Okay, so
Okay.
go for it.
So, we recognize this is a stretch. You know, it's something that has come up before and something that the county has been reluctant to do, which is why we took what I would describe as a pretty minimalist approach here. And we've simply recommended that wherever, you know, development is being reviewed and considered, that there be a set of standards that be applied to ensure that, you know, pesticides and fertilizers are being used that are not dangerous. So this is the reason why we selected the national list of allowed and prohibited substances, because it's an existing science-based list that's already out there. And it stems from the organic crop and livestock production world, which is a little different than land use, of course. But it can serve as a reference for land management standards, and certainly it could avoid some fairly harmful things that, due to surface runoff, can end up in our surface waters and our rivers. So this is the reason why this was kind of the motivation for why the caucus suggested that these be included. You know, this list is vetted, it's science-based, it offers a consistent approach for reducing chemical input. It aligns with sustainability and water protection goals, which of course the county has in its land use standards. So we feel like it's consistent with county values. And we felt like, you know, why not take the smallest possible step and use an existing science-based list as a tool to start looking at whether or not these chemicals should be applied on our lands. So lastly,
Can I ask a question about that?
Mhm.
You and I have talked about utilizing site plan review only.
Right.
For some of these, implementing some of these standards. The pesticides and fertilizer, I'm not sure how we would capture that.
Yeah, well,
Do you have an
it
idea?
would be a condition of approval, and then it would be a complaint based or violation based. Which admittedly would be, near impossible to enforce, but again. Some of these standards are intended to show the way. And, and whether or not enforcement is everything we want it to be. Might not be the end all be all, is the perspective of the caucus.
Okay.
And I think that you and Suzanne would be good with one of those little helmets with this bushes sticking out. Probably.
That's
Closest retirement job.
yeah. This is just about done.
Just means shit.
Well, I mean, it's, there's definitely some good to this whole, wanting to use the right chemicals, not wanting to use the bad chemicals. And, there's all kinds of stuff going on in the agriculture world where, someone got an organic farm and the guy next door, sprays dicamba or one of those chemicals on a windy day. And the organic farm loses half of
Right.
their crop because it's carried by the wind. So, I mean, it does affect your neighbors, it can affect your neighbors, and your neighbor's property. So I like the idea, but I don't see a way to force it, so. That's the problem there. And I don't wanna put the, whoever goes out there, the inspectors, in a tough situation of, what do they go through your gardening shed or your, see what kind of bags of stuff you got laying around? I mean, it's tough, how do you enforce that?
The thing that I like about both sets of information you just passed on to us is that, and I understand and believe that it can't be adequately enforced, but I also believe that we have a history in this county of setting the pace, whether it's no smoking or whether it's dirty burning wood stoves or wood burning, wood fireplaces and such.
Has to
That people follow, people in other places follow. And so the concept of educating homeowners as they come along appeals to me. And the fact that it may well carry over and because of the things that we are focusing on, the filters that we're using to look at our comprehensive plan, which involve climate change and the kinds of things that can lead to that, and water conservation. I agree with Jim. And this caucus has a dear place in my life, has had a dear place in my life, because it has a set of values that it stands for and it fights for. And, there are people like Dottie Fox who helped plant some of those ideas and encourage those values to be closely held. So I admit I have that kind of pull toward, if they want to be tough, I want them to be. I'm so happy that there are people that will still be that way. And I do understand exactly what you're saying about it probably won't be enforced. But I also know that Tim is right, that if you put it out there, maybe I shouldn't put it this way, but some people will fall for it. Some people will actually do it and maybe get educated in the process themselves.
Yeah, and remember that all of these standards apply only to this caucus area. This is in the standards that is part of their overlay only. So.
And I'd say maybe part of that for me is part of my concern, and I get, you're right, I laud them for obviously all these things. But it's like, is this the right mechanism under zoning and kind of the land use code, I mean, a pesticide issue. It shouldn't just be this caucus area, if it's that critical, it should be I mean, again, I see them championing issues. Is this really the right mechanism? And I get the argument too, like, well, you start somewhere,
Yeah.
you start with this caucus area and then maybe, maybe it will spread, maybe, whatever, I don't know. But I think that's where some of these I just struggle, like, is this really the right place for this to live? Under our land use code to apply only at site plan review, which means it only happens if somebody's building new or replacing their house. So 95% of the other lots out there, these won't ever be applied to.
What,
It will only show up as a development condition.
what's the downside? What's the harm to?
I mean, again, I don't know that there's a downside, I don't feel great about putting things in the code and then just saying, well, we're never gonna enforce that. Like, I don't feel like that's the right, seat for me to be in. We've got plenty of things, everybody could argue what we don't, should be in our enforcing now, and we work on a complaint basis, but still, it's kind of, are we just setting ourselves up to go, sure, these guys, pesticides are a concern. I don't know how often these federal lists change. Is it changing today? Because things are changing a lot at the federal level. Is that something we're gonna have to worry about? Like, our code's not gonna be consistent with federal regs. We're gonna somehow have to keep track of, again, it's like, you just get into kind of, I could get lost in the details. Maybe not the right place to be, but again, I'm just not sure. Is it the county code should be stronger, not the land use code, the county code about not allowing certain pesticides anywhere in Pitkin County. That's a different place for this type of regulation to live. Or we have weed regulations with that, be a place for pesticides. So that's sort of where I'm like, are we?
I certainly understand it is much easier for me to say than for you to do. To follow through.
One way to address the changeability question, which is a very good one, is to say, as they are currently constituted and have a copy of them, in the land use application manual or something like that.
Or it's the pesticides and fertilizer.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff, or not a lot of stuff, but especially the pesticides and the fertilizers are, values and comp plan, all of that kind of stuff that we've been talking about and we all really strongly support. I'm not the person that says whether it should be in the land use code as opposed to in the comp plan. The comp plan, I guess, is more of this aspirational thing. This is what we want people to do. The land use code says you shall, right? And so, I support the comment that says, no duplex, no multifamily, no that special use. No, what did I say? Yeah, the special use. It's almost as backwards, so that's really honest, I would say. It's something for special use, how often it turns. If it says that it's approved by special use, they're gonna get something. And so Canada Caucus is saying, we don't want that. And so it should be in the land use code. That's what they're saying. If the county says, oh, you can come and only get it through special use, that to me is de facto approval of some part. So I think it should be in the code. It says if they don't want it, it should say it directly, clearly, and as many times as necessary. So, I understand. My first question was gonna be is how you guys felt about the staff's recommendations. Water standards, once again, I don't know if this is the appropriate place in the code, but it certainly needs to be in the code. Someplace, whether the land use code is the correct place or someplace else. Those are my thoughts.
I had one more section to discuss, or one more staff
But you
recommendation.
said 3, sorry.
2 minutes, yeah, that was the second one, second part of the second one.
It's 2B.
The second part of the second one.
Which slide?
Sorry.
Last one. This one,
Let's see.
the special event
Yeah, special event.
referral. Okay.
About that.
I'll be super brief here. this is the staff is striking the language that requires special event permit applications be referred to the appropriate recognized caucus as a code provision. We acknowledge that the staff does a great job. I don't have any concerns about whether or not special event permits are being referred when they're important or when they're, in this caucus area, or however the community development department decides that it should work. But the caucus points out that the sections of the code that deal with this say as follows. Leslie recommends, I read this already, but I just want to reiterate. Section 1-6150, the county will provide notification of pending land use applications to the affected adjoining property owners, homeowners associations, and neighborhood caucus groups when appropriate. And then the second one is more vague. It says, once the application is deemed complete as the community development director, the application shall be referred to those county, city, state, and federal agencies and neighborhood organizations, not even caucuses, selected by the community development director. And they're saying, hey, we want to see them all. And they're saying, well, the county's kind of been moving toward, let's be as clear as possible in the code. And their view is just requiring it is pretty clear. Send us them all. We don't know if we'll review them all, if we'll have time, if we'll provide meaningful comments on them all, but we want to see them all because they've been an issue for our caucus area. We've had a lot of weddings, we've had a lot of parties, we've had a lot of stuff that has been, not everyone has been happy about. And we just want to have the opportunity to make sure if it's going to happen here, we know it, and we have an opportunity to look at it and say, oh, this looks like it's problematic or not. So whether it's standard, the fact that it's standard practice.
Would,
Yep, every time.
Leslie, would you feel the same way about it? If where appropriate was struck?
The language that's in the current code.
Yeah. Well, I think that would, it would be more definitive. I guess there would not be a question. If the caucus is concerned that when appropriate leaves wiggle room.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. I think it's important. I don't do special event permits. Sam Haberman does. But there are a lot of things that happen on people's property that are not special events and do not need special event permits. And so I'm just saying that if the caucus feels like there's been a lot of special events and they haven't gotten wind of those because they haven't been referred, I just know that people have weddings on their properties for their kids, and that's not a special event. Doesn't require a special event permit.
Well, I think, isn't there, under the special event permit, isn't there like a trigger with the amount of people or tenting or the amount of buses or vans that have to service it, that
There's
even
some-
if you had a wedding on your own property would then engage in an event permit?
If it's your private party, we are hands off.
Mhm.
And if you're holding it, but you're really holding it for your third cousin or your.
If you're actually,
neighbor somewhere
you know,
else,
right,
yeah.
trying to rent your property under the table and not tell us about it, not get a permit, you're in violation of the code.
Which,
So, I mean, we hear about those after the fact all the time.
Mhm.
And we do our best to then enforce against those property owners, but, you know, right, but their McKay Branch comes in every year and gets special event permits for the events they're renting out the property for, you know, and they've been doing that and they get referred to you know, whatever. So I mean, again, I guess I see a system that's working and I'm not sure why we would call out this specific type of application differently than every other application we bring through our system under this same language in the code. And we send everything to whatever caucus it's in, no matter what the application is. The caucus may or may not touch it, think about it, look at it, comment on it, but we send it.
so right now, every special event permit in any caucus, anywhere in the county, when somebody applies for a special event permit, that permit gets shared and referred to the
Yep.
caucus that it's in.
If there's a caucus.
If there is. a
Right,
caucus.
if there's a caucus and, yeah, and right, if they come in for an application.
If they apply, yeah.
Right, that's a different issue. So again, on my end, I feel like we're not changing anything about how we manage this. I mean, again, is it harmful to add that language? No, but I guess I just, you know, sort of go, why are we calling this out separately from the other 90% of the applications we receive, that we also, under this exact same language under the land use code, every time look at what caucus is it in and include them on the referral list.
Well, it seems like the when appropriate, should be struck for the whole county. I mean, I think from the law, I have to agree that saying when it's appropriate means, well, I don't really think this is raised to the level and I'm the guy that chooses. I think if you're gonna send notice, then you send notice or you don't send notice. When appropriate makes your job harder, because you have to say, oh, this one doesn't rise to the level, whether it's in Snowmass or Woody Creek or Castle Creek or wherever it is. When appropriate, I think makes the job more difficult.
Yeah.
If it just says, you send notice,
And I guess I'll just say, you know, again, the way I think about that language is when appropriate. If you guys live next door to each other and have agreed you're gonna do a lot line adjustment and swap some property. Do I feel like that's, the caucus needs to know about that? I might go, no, it's not appropriate. There's no need for the caucus to, so again, it does leave some leeway. But, you know, again, and I get it, I'm who I am and I administer the way I do, and it won't always be me. And I get that, you know, but again, if we wanted to put it in for special events, do we need to add that to the code in 30 other places where it's like, oh, and by the way, this type of application you also have, you know, so I don't know.
appropriate is sprinkled throughout the code, is that what you're doing?
No, I mean, this is just, no, I mean, this is the language, you know, to determine, I mean, again, I don't know, that's the only good application, you know,
Yeah.
other example I can think of where I go, this is a caucus issue.
Well, the lot line adjustment is a quiet thing
Yeah,
and an event causes a stir.
Again, but that gives me, again, if I'm thinking about all the types of land use applications I receive,
Mhm.
including special events. Like the leeway to go. This is, you know, two property owners involved, it doesn't need a caucus thing for that. We don't ever do that with a special event, we go, clearly these have impacts,
Mhm.
and the caucus should have the opportunity to comment. But
I would have no problem codifying like that language that any special event gets referred to the appropriate caucus, you know, across the board. I just think, like Doug said, it makes it easier for staff and where they don't have to be put in some decision where they decide whether it needs to go to the caucus or not. I just think that we've been hearing from so many different caucuses,
Mhm.
whether it's Woody Creek, Redstone, Snowmass, Capitol Creek,
French Creek.
about the special event pressure is just going to grow every summer. And it's gonna get worse. It's just like traffic across the bridge. It's not gonna get any better. And we have obviously, you know, this caucus knows that they only have one, you know, one special event site like McCabe Ranch that I know about, right? But then there's other places like Woody Creek where you have one property that's been never historically used for a special event. It changes hands, and then all of a sudden, the owners have decided it's a pseudo event space, right? It's not like we have established special event sites like T Lazy 7, and everybody knows about it, right? And that's sort of a grandfathered in, I guess you could say, site, but the pressure is just gonna increase, and every summer there's gonna be new properties changing hands, and the people are gonna be coming into these caucuses who don't have any input into the community, aren't a part of the caucus, don't care about their neighbors, don't care about the caucus, and just decide that, like, you know, I'm gonna have my business partner's daughter's wedding there, and there's no such thing as like 100-person wedding anymore. It's like a 500-person wedding. Every wedding is like, that's, you know, 50 shuttle vans and band and yeah, and all that. So I don't have any problem, you know, codifying that language and just making all special events have to be referred to the appropriate caucus. And I also have no problem with the language under 3-40-190 with the intent, even if it is a little redundant, adding that language that the caucus recommends where there's no multifamily condominium apartment or town trailer homes in the caucus area. I understand staff recommendation that, you know, the paragraph above does cover that, but it never hurts to say something twice, I guess.
What does caucus think about this piece that was added recently, the line 4, whatever it was that they're doing at Redstone Castle, about on-site employee housing for on-site?
I think their position softens somewhat when it's, you know, employee housing or staff housing. And one of the things that we could consider would be to say, free market, add free market to the language, so that there would be a way around when you wanted to do workforce housing that was going to be derestricted as workforce housing. So that's a change that they're amenable to.
I don't understand what the free market is, what you mean by the free market.
Well, if you look at the language currently, it says new duplex units, mobile homes, multifamily dwelling units, the following note shall be added to bottom of table 4-1, and it's this shall be prohibited. So note 1, instead of starting with new duplex dwelling units, mobile homes, etc., new free market duplex dwelling units, mobile homes, multifamily units are prohibited in this caucus area.
I think that's a great addition, just so it leaves that open for possibly, you know, mitigating traffic by having a bunch of people live. I mean, the one place, of course, we have no idea what's gonna happen to, and no one wants to see anything happen. It's the big elephant in the room up there, which is the monastery property, and what's gonna happen to that. And it's a huge piece of property with, you know, lots of potential from developers.
Where it might be appropriate for
Going to be-
employee,
Yeah.
on-site employee housing.
Right,
If it's of the type that you thought.
I do want to draw your attention to the proposed changes where see if note 1, that's where Tim was proposing, it would say new free market duplex. So if you look at where I've highlighted in yellow, the footnote would be in our permitted use, principal use section where we have single family home and things like that, the very top of the table. I'll show you in a second. But what I've highlighted here is employee dwelling unit and caretaker dwelling units as special reviews in the majority of the zone districts in this overlay district. So if we say an employee dwelling unit or caretaker dwelling unit are not free market units. So it based upon your conversation where you guys are going and where you're suggesting, say, no new free market, we still have this, there's still this opportunity here.
For a special review.
Special review of employee dwelling units, utilizing that new section in the code for on-site employee rental units.
And that's why we propose that there be no notes, no note
Right.
1 on these uses.
Yeah, see, this is where they're proposing
Yes,
the notes. Note 1 is,
apply to these 3.
yeah,
Sorry, are replying to which 3?
the top 3, the first highlighted line is duplex dwelling unit
Okay,
with a footnote of 1, mobile home.
got it. That's
Footnote.
right. I can't, yeah.
And I know, I'm
I
sorry.
can't read this.
I know. But I have it here.
Glasses don't help.
But I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
I could try and present,
Yeah.
I can get it a
No.
little bit bigger,
So-
so.
So again, those are footnotes that apply, that would be applied to the table. Footnote number 1 is Tim is suggesting, saying new free market duplex dwelling units, mobile home and
I
multifamily
would say then that language should also be included where you put it in the intent statement.
Yes.
If you all are
in the
wanting to
intent
keep
statement.
that, which that would be reflected there as well.
Real, and actually, let me just push back on that slightly.
Maybe, I'm just that
The reason that it wasn't in there is that this is a direct quote from the master plan. And so it's intended to show the intent and as such, it is one kind of, animal in the code as opposed to something that says do this or don't do this.
so essentially a finding, say, in the P and Z's resolution could be, right,
Yeah.
we found that this was appropriate to prohibit when it's restricted to free market and not, whatever, like we could add language to kind of clarify how that plays out and why it's different. Okay.
Back to the special event permit. I hear the P and Z saying that this sentence that I've struck, that really actually looks like an underline. The community development director shall refer all special event permit applications to the appropriate recognized caucus for review and comment prior to issuance of a permit. Again, this language would apply countywide and only apply to special event permits.
I'm good with that, but just encourage your caucus friends when they complain about special events happening everywhere, that they should actually submit a complaint. Cause we hear a lot about things that happen out there that nobody ever actually submits the full complaint on for us to enforce against. So when it feels like they're happening everywhere, we're not necessarily aware of that, so. I do unfortunately hear the caucuses go, there's just too much of this going on, but nobody ever comes clean on where it's actually happening.
Ratting on your neighbors is always hard.
Yeah, that would, but it would be really helpful if they want to keep complaining about it.
Staff supported,
Sorry, so we're talking about removing the strike.
yes,
Great. That's what I
Yes.
thought. Okay.
yeah, and we're not going to touch the next section and delete when appropriate.
Yeah.
Because that would apply to everything that we get in.
I want my leeway.
Suzanne wants to. Again, staff supported the second footnote in our permitted use table, which prevents special event venues within the overlay district. We supported that.
Just for everyone who's not as tuned into all of our regs, is a special event venue. If you wanna hold on your property more than 3 events in 1 calendar year, you trigger becoming a special event venue. And that requires that you go through a special review process in front of the BOCC, public hearing, you know, and be designated a venue. So what they've said is, we don't want those.
How many of those are in our county roughly, do you have any idea? A big number is?
No, you know,
Yeah,
I could, yeah.
yeah,
Less than
not
that.
even, not even,
Yeah.
not even that.
yeah.
You know, Prince Creek Barn,
Yeah.
Chaparral, you know, functions as one.
Yeah.
Right, there's some, they're
Not-
grandfathered, like Tea Lazy's happen. So no, most people, Dunbar Ranch, you know, they toe the line on, I'm doing 3 permits per property per year. And that's how I'm doing my special events, and I don't wanna go into being a special
So
event
they're
venue.
process of becoming a special event.
There was one in this caucus area that closed some years ago.
Is that the one that is like, right where East Silvers Creek and West?
Or it had some other approval, I think. It had a special use permit approval, the monastery.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
that essentially functioned under religious institutions, so in terms of, yeah.
or with Windstar?
We had some events.
That was so long, before, like how, whatever, yeah, I mean, that was just, yeah, long before we were playing the game we play now. I guess.
There was just one guy playing a guitar. up there.
Right.
Didn't
John Denver.
He had more hair.
But I live longer.
You're right.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
still here.
so with regard to the residential development and citing criteria. What Tim has clarified is that this whole section F applies only to site plan review,
Correct,
okay? So I would want to clarify that
yes.
in the language of the code. I'll figure out where to put that.
It would be under,
Staff directive,
Pardon?
good activity envelope approval, then you go to site plan.
Some people do that. Some people just come through an activity envelope. Most people do activity envelope and site plan at the same time.
That's right, we did that.
So the change would be on page 2 of attachment G, under paragraph F, residential development citing criteria, item 1, whenever development is proposed on land zone VCLSO that requires site plan, scratch, activity envelope review pursuant to section, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay,
And I don't know if that shows up anywhere else. Yes,
It shows up.
under the
again.
water standard, G would be have the same strike for activity envelope. Assuming that you want to proceed with those.
all right. So as you can see, staff supports pretty much all of the standards under number 1. And then we had discussion about the water standards.
Can I ask one question under the first set of residential design standards?
Hmm.
Tim,
Yes,
how would we review building designs consistent with the overall character of the VCLS area are preferred? I'm just trying to think about what my staff would do with that when presented with an application, and you know, we do our best to try and respond to the criteria in the code.
well,
For everybody to him.
yeah, it's an imperfect answer, but you could require that as part of the application, that an applicant demonstrates that in fact they are consistent with character, which would include presumably some photographs of surrounding, homes, et cetera, et cetera. It's not pretty, it wouldn't be easy, a lot of people will complain about it, But instead of putting it on yourselves,
Mhm.
The appropriate tool to me is to put it on the applicant.
Like indigenous colors
Yeah, right.
for scenic review. White is an indigenous color
All colors,
several months out of the year.
all colors come from nature.
Bright fuchsia, you know, what
Everything.
are we from blue?
Mhm.
Anyway.
So, we had some discussion around water standard, landscaping, garden irrigation, agricultural irrigation, and pesticides.
Those are the hard ones because I think the comments that have been made about some sort of enforcement and there's some aspirational goals, even though there are more than aspirational goals because of the environment you're going to move in. I think it's difficult. I would agree with Suzanne to have it for one caucus, one area in the county really complicates it. It seems like it's gonna be. It seems like it's more of a comp plan thing. And is it part of the comp plan?
I mean, the comp plan definitely addresses, you know, water quality, you know, with definitely, obviously, right, then it's the code piece, like, how do we then codify
Right.
our policies, which again, I think all of this is consistent with where we'd be headed with those water comp plan policies as well, so, but right, it's, you know, that's the next step, is codifying.
Using their
what that
work
looks
in the
like.
comp plan. They've
No.
created a document.
What I would say about this section is that these aren't from the master plan. So there isn't an opportunity to apply this kind of policy specifically if you're doing a site plan review for compliance with the master plan. So the caucus doesn't have these tools in the master plan. What they have are more general statements about the desire to, reduce wasteful water use and to protect surface water quality and quantity and keep our rivers healthy, et cetera, et cetera. And we develop these standards as an outgrowth or a way of implementing those in the code. So these standards are not included, wouldn't be included in a review for compliance with the master plan in the caucus area. They would be, new standards that would apply only in this caucus area when site plan reviews are done. So it grew from more general objectives in the master plan.
So. The one standards, I mean, so are you saying these are more aspirational for the caucus? Like as goals that you would hope?
No,
I mean,
these are things that they would like to see in the code
right,
applied as the language applied. Now, some of these are pretty easy. I mean, shall prioritize the use of drip. And it's not requiring that people use drip irrigation. And they went through these and they said, I'm not comfortable making that a shall. It seems like, let's encourage this, but we don't feel comfortable holding somebody's, foot to the fire when it comes to whether or not they use drip. It's better from the standpoint of, evaporation, et cetera, but we're compromising.
I have a real problem with C, only because, okay, say you got a lawn that needs a 1/4 inch of water, every 3 days, I'm just throwing out something. It might not be quite that, but the low flow sprinkler heads give less water. Well, the plant still needs a certain amount. So people turn up the time on that zone. I mean, low flow sprinkler heads are stupid, really. They don't save money the way a low flow toilet or shower or, sink head do, because plants need a certain amount of water, and if you put a whole zone of low flow sprinkler heads in, someone's gonna see that it's dry, everything's wilting, and they're just gonna go put it from 10 minutes to 20 minutes.
Well,
And,
but they're not stupid when used in the context of a smart controller.
well, yeah.
And that's also in here.
Right, okay, so, yeah.
And so,
It's when they first started changing them out and with an old controller that
Yep.
was kind of. And then the windy weather, really. middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, oh, my sprinkler system's on and it's windy, I gotta go turn it off.
Call the
Not gonna
zoning enforcement officer.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That number is posted also.
Not gonna happen.
I have no problem with any of the landscape garden irrigation. The only thing that I think should be addressed on a countywide is the fertilizer.
And that's,
Pesticide chemical issue. I think that's like a bigger issue that should be, like Suzanne said, what's on the list. And to have one caucus where you can use Roundup or whatever's on the list, or you can use some inorganic fertilizer product that you could buy at the co-op in Carbondale, and then in the next caucus, you can't use it. I don't know if that's a great, there's just so many different issues that brings up. I think that's probably like a bigger for the county to take a look at and have it be throughout the whole county, where it's whether you're in Redstone or whether you're in, up the pass. This is the list, how that list is maintained, how that is, how that's enforced. I think to have it just be in one caucus, and it's not I think it's something we should do. I think it just maybe needs more time and thought, staff, how that's executed.
What you don't mean that you disagree with what this caucus wants.
I think it's great, and I think this is actually, especially coming from a caucus that has the most agricultural property and I mean, in the water use, I mean, if you look at this caucus, this caucus has the most ranching space, the most center pivot irrigation, the probably the most use of irrigation and water rights from ditches for agricultural, and so for them to be out in front of this, coming from them, it sets a really high standard, and it's impressive. I just think that one issue with the pesticides is something that it's important. So it's something that maybe needs to be a county-wide policy.
And find a better place within the county for it to live.
Yeah,
and
like
be
the noxious weed issue and how that's enforced and how that's regulated, it probably
Mhm.
falls under that
yeah. but
part of the code.
We found our weed person.
Well, I mean, it should, I know there's a noxious weed where you're required to,
Yeah,
and the chemical that the county recommends. Not exactly one of those ones that are safe, I
Yeah.
mean. My friend of mine has a big property up in, Old Snowmass, on the Snowmass side, I mean, on the, on the Snowmass side, Upper Snowmass, she puts on a Tyvek suit to go spray her weeds.
Yep.
And I guess maybe that's another good point is, I mean, this is not something we've vetted. I don't think with any.
No.
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly, even if the county's using these, I mean, again, for our weed control purposes.
Right.
As well as telling homeowners that's what they need to do when they're required to
Mhm.
eradicate noxious weeds on their property. I mean, we haven't had any of that, I guess, discussion or conversation, or, how does that
yeah. How's that
layer,
affect all parts
layer
of
with
the,
our other, regulations, so definitely straying way beyond, sort of our world of, land use code and whatnot, and right, again, not to say that it's not something that deserves a bigger conversation, but it probably deserves that bigger conversation. And not kind of tossing it into an overlay for one area of the county.
And it's Upper Snowmass whatever the caucus, Capitol Creek, Lower Snowmass, not Upper Snowmass.
Yeah.
Valleys of capital and lower
It's Capitol.
Snowmass.
I understand physically where it is. I'm having trouble with the nomenclature.
Alone.
But it's it's, that group is saying, we want this, we want people in our community that are coming into our community to understand our values. And they're seeing this as a way to put it out there so that anybody that comes in and is gonna do something understands that's what Tim has said, you know, maybe they're gonna abide by it or maybe not, but at least they'll see it. And half of them will and half of them won't, or whatever the number is. So I think the question remains is where is the best place to make sure that people coming into the community get the information? And anybody that's gonna do any development, this is where they're gonna go first, right? The land use code. So I understand their motivation, how they wanna get the information out. Having it buried in all of the other kinds of places in the code is difficult. I do agree though, it's a bigger conversation and is it appropriate for the land use code in this, you know, just for this community, this area? And I can't answer that, but so.
I guess a question that this board would have for the caucus is what we would like to do is take the intent in that of that idea and then bring it back to the county and provide you with actionable code and a list of fertilizers or pesticides that may or may not be allowed to be used, and then take that idea and then give it back to you with something that is enforceable.
Well,
Just a-
I'm sure that the caucus would be thrilled by such an action that would end up involving the whole county. I mean,
Yeah.
they offered to be a guinea pig, if you will, for this aspect of it. And they heard from staff about, you know, the complications with respect to, you know, enforcement, and wanted to put it in here for purposes of this discussion and to see if, you know, they could prevail to, you know, try it here, if you will, and see what issues crop up, and if it's problematic, make some changes or amendments in the future. But if you wanted to, you know, step back and take a look at what this would mean countywide, I think that would be well received.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're probably, again, we're in the midst of this comp plan. I mean, I feel like we're talking about policies. The county wants to take a stance on pesticide and, you know, fertilizer uses. That's where a policy would live, which then would result in some kind of code provision that I don't think is the land use code. I mean, I think it's the county code. It's a health and safety
Health and safety.
issue. You know, and again, out of the comp plan, obviously implementing anything like that is gonna be then a prioritization on the county's part, but I feel like, right, there's a bigger conversation to be had on the county level, and right, bringing in the people who the county uses to use probably some of these things that aren't listed here, you know, that these are said allowed for use. We're not listing the things that aren't allowed for use. We're not saying you're prohibited from using any of those. So again, I just think there's a lot there that's we still need to explore, and that probably starting with the comp plan, and is there some policy statement? And again, for you guys, because that's gonna be kind of on your docket, but again, it's not something we've worked to then maybe even, right, create a policy, you know, to have you all vet. Go, right, is this something we want the county to look farther into, in terms of restricting?
And so that is the way we widen this tonight with this discussion. But the question being asked of us tonight is, do we agree with this caucus? With what they want, and what's the worst thing that can happen to us if we say yes?
And it's not totally restricted, and the wording is a little loose in that it just says the following are allowed for use, and then they list this particular pesticides and fertilizers being on a national list of allowed and prohibited substances.
Well, I think the intent, if it's not expressed here, is that if it's not on this list of allowed, then it's not allowed.
But I don't think that's what it says.
Well, it says-
I understand that's the
This
intent.
is a national list of allowed and prohibited substances, so
Right.
I'm thinking this list has everything, the
I
good
guess
and
I-
the bad, and if
Right.
I mean.
Mm.
it's just-
I think they wanted to be positive, if you will. They wanted to say, here are the things that you can use. And so if they're on the list, if they're on either of these lists as allowed, then you can use them. If they're not on the list as allowed, then you can't use them. I mean, that's the intent. If clarification to the language is necessary in everyone's view to achieve that, fine, but that's the intent.
And I guess maybe to Suzanne, to you, I would come down on the, I think this has not been vetted enough. From my perspective, you know, again, beyond the like, do I want to enforce it or not? I'm like, I don't know what this means at all.
Mhm.
And again, I think maybe, again, I think there needs to be a broader conversation. And again, it's clearly one of those things that if, right, we want to have that conversation. It's not just at a one caucus level, it's a much bigger level. And that we'd want environmental health involved and we'd want, you know,
Yeah.
again, there's a lot more people I think we'd need to hear from. And so I guess to that point, I'd say, I feel uncomfortable. Even
Would
just tossing it into the code for
Yeah,
now under their
we're not
overlay.
informed enough.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
And that's-
I don't think there's anybody in the caucus who knows what's on these lists.
right.
I don't know what's on these lists, all of it. So, you know, great stuff.
You're not gonna go down on your sword without.
And maybe it's as simple as saying something like, homeowners are, should follow the guidelines of Picken County's, wherever this might reside, Picken County's recommendations for
Weed
fertilizers
management.
and pesticides.
If it ended up in some other portion of the county code, these guys, I think, would be
That would
happy
be
as
a
a
good
plan.
thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that's just it's a further conversation.
Yep.
About what that
It
is.
is a further, and we have a BOCC date of November 5th. To
Next
take,
week.
to take these recommendations, and this is not something that we can vet and figure out
And by then,
by then.
Yeah,
yep.
And if I were to quote Ned, I think keeping that BOCC date is very important
Yes.
to them.
Yeah, if you're not comfortable and we don't have time to vet this by next week.
Okay.
All right, so
and I can, again, with that, I think with striking that, say here, I mean, I can certainly go back to really kind of Hunt and Ellen and kind of go with all the water standards we've been talking about. Is this showing up somewhere? I don't know
Yeah.
off the top of my head. Or can we look to what is some language maybe we want to put around that in the
Mhm.
comp plan
Mhm.
as something we want to learn more about and investigate and determine if there's some limitation that the county wants to put on this. But I think that's kind of more the level we're at this point.
I see.
okay, so let me see if I can pull this together here. We have a resolution before us to approve the amendments to the Pickens County Land Code for the valleys of Capitol Creek and Lower Snowmass Creek Overlay District. We have discussed 3 changes to those approvals. The first one is that the board agreed or discussed on agreeing section 3-40-190 to add in the language that the county staff struck in reference to condominiums, and mobile homes, duplexes.
I think you need to say, yeah, keep the
And
language
just
that was
keeping
drafted
keeping
by
that section
the caucus.
in its entirety,
Were we adding free market in there?
that language.
Not an A.
Right, because we're referring to it in the table. Yep. And then we also discussed, including the special event permitting language. Just adding that all special event permits get referred to the caucuses. And having that be permanent, having that just be across the board, and then striking the language that refers to pesticides and fertilizers in it, so that staff can have more time to look into that and research what the long-term effects of that and how that language should be drafted and executed. So
And
that's about right.
where it should live in the code.
And where it should live in the code, like Suzanne said, in environmental health, or how that can be designed so we can execute it, so it can be enforced.
And then, I'm sorry, Zach, I was
Hmm.
striking and writing keep and things like that. Right here in footnote 1, we're gonna say new free market duplex dwelling units.
Correct.
Right.
And then in, all of their residential development and siting criteria, everything is being kept as proposed by the caucus, except for this section, pesticides and inorganic fertilizer, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Just want to double check. Thank you. Oh, and paragraph F1 and G, water standards. Whenever development is proposed on land zone VCLSO, that requires site plan review or striking activity envelope.
Correct.
Yeah, in both. You're right. Right, okay. The resolution did not. The resolution did not pick and choose between staff's recommendation and the applicant's proposal, the language of the findings and everything of the resolution. So I think that language of the resolution is fine. It's just Exhibit A will change. Exhibit A, the resolution will change to reflect your recommendation.
That sounds good.
Yeah, and actually just like the little pieces, like the title, the actual sections, because there was one section where we said don't change, I guess, the special event, the referral piece. So we wouldn't even change that land use code section, but now we will, as recommended by the caucus.
Right.
So again, it just references, we will reference all of the code sections that are being changed based on what you've just recommended, so we'll clean that up.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
So I would entertain a motion to vote on the resolution adopting the amendments for the Snowmass Capitol Creek Caucus master plan with the addition of the 3 changes that we just discussed.
I second.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Yeah, make them. Debbie has made a motion to, and I will call a vote to vote on the resolution with for the Snowmass Capitol Creek Caucus master plan that has the 3 changes that we just discussed.
Before that, I'll second it.
Seconded. Thank you very much. No, my rules of order. All right, motion is seconded, and then we'll call vote for the motion with the 3 changes. Doug? Oh, Bonnie? Go ahead.
Public hearing?
Oh, dude.
No.
Oh, no,
not
okay.
public hearings, we're good.
No. Is anybody in the public in there? Okay, we had a motion made by Debbie and Suzanne seconded it, and I'll call to a vote. Doug? Yes. Suzanne?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So unanimous.
Thank you so much for your time
Thank you.
and careful consideration.
And thank you so much for having this special meeting for us
Yeah,
tonight. I
the caucus really
appreciate it.
appreciates
Yeah.
it.
Sorry that we go on with it the last time.
Yeah.
Which was lovely, fantastic. We already made her sit around for 3 hours.
Broke us.
So I just have 2, like, quick
Yep.
scheduling questions.
Yep.
So right now you have a comp plan meeting on November 18th, which would be the Tuesday, the week prior to Thanksgiving.
Okay.
We had scheduled December 2nd for a comp plan meeting, which is the week right after Thanksgiving. And Hannah and Ellen are trying to, in the hopes of maybe wrapping up this phase of work sessioning with comp plan with you, like to maybe get done with that in December. But December 2nd is gonna be a little too tight for them to turn around the information they'd like to. So the question is, right now, we didn't have another meeting scheduled in December for you all. Are you willing, or available to meet on the 16th of December? Which would normally be your second meeting with them. Here. So this November 18th is a scheduled comp plan meeting. And then instead of meeting on December 2nd, could you meet on the 16th?
And is the November 18th meeting is in the week before? right?
It's the week before, yeah, it's not the week of, it's the week
Yeah.
before,
I can do that.
I can do that.
the 16th.
Yep.
I can do the 16th, but I won't be able to.
Okay, yeah, you had some dates you were out. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
I can do the 18th, but I can't see.
Okay, so I'll run that through our other folks, but just so like right now.
Yep.
At least have three of you that the 16th of December will work. And my other question, and I'll have to throw this more broadly to P and Z, is we're looking at a lot of particularly big public projects that are gonna be coming through that we're gonna have to be taking through L&E with you. And we're doing a lot of juggling. We had a meeting with the board last week about what are their priorities for their projects, which happen to be like the airport, Phillips Mobile Home Park, the landfill. Those are the big ones. The city of Aspen has two big hydro projects for Rudai and Maroon Creek that have to come through us for location and extent review. We just met with the Ziegler Reservoir Waters at Sonoma's water folks today. Sounds like that one's on a little later time frame. But just all of a sudden, we're like, there's a lot, and we're gonna try and get the comp plan reviewed at public hearings by you. So we were looking at a lot maybe happening in the first several months of 2026. So our two questions are, how willing are you all to like throw in a third meeting in a month? And or like saying we're willing to, no, we're gonna meet from 5 to 8 always, or that can people start meetings a little earlier? We're gonna run into conflicts with the board, but like, would it work better if you could meet longer? Could you meet from 4 to 7? Or again, we're trying to just see, and all of this may not matter and it may be fine with 2 meetings a month, but we're just trying to gauge like how much flexibility you guys have and how much we try and be really careful about asking you for extra meetings. Because we know you're volunteers, but we just want to at least throw it out there to start going. If we need, could we ask you for, dates?
For me, that time of year would be a good time to have extra things. For me,
Right,
if we could start a little earlier and end on time,
Mhm.
that would be nice. But I
right.
don't have a 9 to 5 job.
4:30 would work for me, but 4 o'clock I'd probably do it.
Okay, no, I mean, it's just, we're just trying to like
I'm working.
Yeah.
feel out some ideas
I'm
at this
gonna
point.
Starting earlier, even if we can't get this room and we need to be in
Right.
another room, I think is a good option.
So 4:30 could be, okay.
Yeah, good.
Okay, and then, again, like this meeting, well, this was a shift, but I mean, are you at least willing to have me make asks of you if I'm trying to lay out a schedule and going? If we want to kind of keep the momentum going with the comp plan, like, would you be
Yeah.
willing to, and again, it's all gonna be contingent upon having enough people available to have the meeting, but, again, if you're at least game to have me ask, I understand that it's
I'm
not
game.
always gonna work.
Yeah,
But we could at least try. Okay, that just helps. Again, we're just looking at a big spreadsheet of, wow, there's a lot coming.
mhm.
And a lot of it lands on your plate for location and extent reviews, the comp plan, whatever else, like it just. Everything always comes at once, and we'll have all those times where we don't have any meetings with you and then all of a sudden we need you a lot. So I think Q1 of next year.
Lovely to be needed.
Yeah, you'll be
Yeah.
needed. Q1, Q2, will be important.
Yeah.
So, okay, great.
4:30 to 7:30 would actually,
That would be a good.
that would be good,
That
yeah.
works, yeah.
Then it doesn't go so late.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank
Meeting
you.
adjourned. There we go.
I just have one comment. So lately, it's the network connection that keeps kicking me off and is stopping the meeting, so I might need to maybe have a signal that says we're taking a quick 5-minute break or something while everybody, cause what happened was this one got kicked out.
At 6,
Right around 6 almost every single time, and then I got kicked out, and as I was logging on, that's when Leslie got kicked out. So it was like a kind of a snowball effect, but when y'all were talking about the special event portion, there was no microphone. So that part of the meeting is kind of a blank in there now, so I might need to start kind of, hey, Zach, we've gotta stop or something.
Signal.
Yeah,
Sort of
Yeah,
clever.
you can just take a quick pause.
Yeah.
Right.